And yes, good evening and welcome again to Politics 101, our midweek edition. Of course, today is Wednesday. I would like to welcome all of you down to the program the morning after, the evening after, the day after. When we left last night, of course, we had gotten the news that the Director of Public Prosecution had ordered the police to discontinue proceedings against the embattled minister. And by the time we got off air, we had the additional news that the minister had asked the president to be relieved of his positions as cabinet member and as a member of parliament. And so we have a lot to digest there. Welcome down to Politics 101. We're going to continue our coverage tonight. We're going to be joined by Nigel London, one of our regular guests there, and he's going to be a few minutes late. Would like to welcome everybody, whether you're joining us from Guyana or you're joining us from the wider Caribbean, North America, whether you're joining us from all the way out there in Europe, or whether you're joining us from Africa, wherever you are, welcome to Politics 101. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening. Good evening to Mr. Morgan, Hosea Morgan, out there in South Carolina. And the other Morgan, the elder Morgan, was charged under the Cybercrime Act for a comment made on this program. And he is set to appear in court, I think, sometime next week. And we had been waiting for the outcome of that case. And he has now been charged and is set to appear in court. And we are going to be keeping watch on that development. Good evening. Good evening to you, Hosea Morgan. Good evening to the elder Morgan. Good evening to all the Morgans. And good evening to you who are joining us from Brooklyn, June Cameron. Good evening. Those of you who are joining us from New Jersey, Connecticut. Good evening to all of you down there in Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, tri-state area. Good evening. Good evening to you in the Atlanta area, Atlanta, Georgia. Those of you who are down in the South, good evening. Those of you who are joining us from the West, the Midwest, good evening to you in Texas. Welcome to Politics 101. Those of you who are joining us from the United Kingdom, welcome to Politics 101. Inequality before the law. Inequality before the law. Inequality before the law. In any modern society, I'm not going to democracy because that is an overused word. I don't think we have ever been a democracy. And that word is being thrown around foolishly, and I'm not going there. In any modern society, one assumes that there is equality before the law. So enshrined in the Constitution, in a place like the United States, they to amend the Constitution, the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, that give equality before the law. That is the assumption that all of us as citizens are presumed innocent until found guilty, that we must have equal treatment before the law, both as individuals and as groups. Both as individuals and as groups. The society is not just made up of individuals, but also groups. The Bill of Rights in the US Constitution gives rights to the individuals. But while the Constitution protected the rights of individuals, it did not protect the rights of groups. And so the 14th Amendment of the American Constitution was intended to protect the rights of groups and to give groups equality before the law. And we assume that in any modern decent society, that there is equality before the law. That is, that the law is supposedly blind, colorblind. The law is blind. The law is not supposed to discriminate against individuals or against groups in the society. We all make that assumption. We all make that assumption. But laws by themselves are not the end of the story. All societies have laws. All societies have laws. Because the laws are the rules by which the society is governed. And all societies have rules. They have laws. Guyana has laws. But the laws by themselves do not ensure fairness and justice. All societies have governments. Those who are elected to govern the society. And the assumption is that those who are elected to govern the society are expected to govern fairly. They're expected to govern in the interest of all citizens, regardless of social class, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of age, regardless of gender. Government is then an important aspect of any society. That is why it's important that we get government right. We in Guyana have been grappling over the decades with what kind of government, what kind of governance system is best for our society. Our society is a plural society, meaning that it is not made up of any monolithic group. Our society is a diverse society, ethnically and racially diverse, diverse in terms of social class. And so therefore the question is, what kind of government and governance system is best for the kind of society that we have. And I think that we have played around in Guyana too much with the very nature of our society. Politicians have played around with it, and people have played around with it. And we have allowed aspirations to become reality. Our motto, one people, one nation, one destiny, which is an aspiration. Mottos are aspirations. We have allowed that aspiration to become a reality. And some groups are more guilty of it than others. I think African Guyanese have been more guilty than other groups of substituting that aspiration of one people, one nation, one destiny, substituting that aspiration for the reality. We come to believe that we are one people, one nation, one destiny. And in 2023, we are finding out brutally that error in a brutal way. Because one of our groups, meaning the leadership of one of our groups, has decided that in an era of unprecedented wealth, that it is going to dominate the society, that it's going to take advantage of that aspiration and use it in the interest of its political / ethnic aspirations. And they have extended that motto to one Guyana. And whether we like it or not, we have to contend with that. What one Guyana is turning out to be is a one-party Guyana. That is, one party will be dominant, a single dominant party system. So we have a multi-party system. Other parties still function, but one party, a single party, is going to be dominant. So one Guyana is not about bringing the ethnic groups together. One Guyana is about one party being dominant. And so the rest of us are engaged in one Guyana as if the people are talking about bringing all the ethnic groups together. Oh no. Oh no. One Guyana really is about one political party dominating Guyana. And there are implications when one party dominates. It means that in our political system, where party is equivalent to ethnicity or race, one party dominance quickly becomes one race dominance. And that is what we have to understand. Now, The PPP is taking advantage of developments that are happening right in front of our eyes, and that the rest of the population either ignores it or are not aware of what's happening in our society. Tomorrow, the Secretary of State of the most powerful country in the world is visiting Guyana. Guyana, small, former colonial outpost, barely 750,000 people. Why? Why is the most powerful, the Secretary of State, the fourth in command of the most powerful country, visiting Guyana? And we have the discussion going on about why. It is no accident. It doesn't happen every day. In fact, twice in 3 years, the American Secretary of State is visiting Guyana. Unprecedented. It means that something is happening that we as a people have to quickly get our minds wrapped around. Guyana's changed. Guyana's changed tremendously. Guyana's changed domestically. Guyana's status hemispherically and globally has changed. And that important fact we have to get into our heads. We are dealing with and living in a changed country. And the question of who governs is extremely important. And I think the mistake a lot of us continue to make is to believe that nothing has changed, that we are dealing with normal politics. Now, I have studied dictatorships. My PhD dissertation was on the rise of authoritarian rule in Guyana, 1964 to 1992. We are living in the presence of a dictatorship. But it is a dictatorship that is able to disguise itself as a democracy. And sometimes we fall for that. Guyana is not a democracy, doesn't pretend to be a democracy, doesn't have to be a democracy. In fact, if Guyana were to become a democracy, then it will upset the plans of a lot of stakeholders, a lot of actors. Now, a minister was accused of raping a child. And the first thing we did was to call for the resignation of the minister. And then we called for a trial of the minister. And those things are assumptions that we are dealing with a normal, pragmatic, decent, system. I heard my brother Nigel, who I love tremendously. I heard him when he was speaking to the ladies in front of his firm. He said, we have to make the system work. But I think Nigel would agree with me that the outcome of this Dharamlal thing has showed that the system has not worked. The system in Guyana, as we knew it, has disappeared. There is a new order in Guyana, a new political order, a new economic order, a new legal order. I am telling you that the way this government has behaved on this Dharamlal matter, none of the previous governments would dare behave in that way. Because even though the previous governments were authoritarian in nature, there was still a semblance of decency. There was some political morality. There was some belief that there was a limit to which you will go. For this government, there is no limit. There's no limit. So we depended on the system to deliver justice, the legal system to deliver justice. And what we see at the end of the day is a way in which the government manipulated the legal system to make sure that it does not work in a just way. From the police and its investigation to the child protection agencies to the presidency, they all conspired to make sure that the system, as we understood it to be, did not work in this instance. And because there are no checks and balances to prevent the government from manipulating the system, the government was able to manipulate the system in front of very eyes without fear. Without fear of pushback. I've been in and around politics. And when politicians sit down to make decisions, they first of all ask how does this benefit the political party? All political parties. Whatever they're doing, they ask how does this benefit the political party? And then they ask, can we get this thing through? That is, will the system allow us to get this thing through, whatever the policy or whatever the issue? And the answer to those two questions, how does this benefit me, my party? And how does it benefit my party without causing the other parties and without causing the system to push back against me. That is, how can I get away with this? And if you come to the conclusion that you're not going to be able to get away with it, you either shelve it or you tweak it. The PPP government has been getting away with things, partly because the system allows them to get away with it, and partly because the political actors on the opposition side have not figured out how to be an opposition in this new dispensation. We know the PPP could not do what it's doing now, could not do it 20 years ago, could not do it 15 years ago, but they could do it now. And the reason they couldn't do it 20 years ago is because the system as it was made it difficult for them to do it. The new Guyanese political, economic, and legal order allows the government of the day to get away with things. You see, when I go there, people say, well, Dr. Hines, you're making it difficult. And I am making it difficult. Because I'm not saying what I'm saying to say to you, pack up your bags and go home. I'm saying to you that this is the reality. And therefore, it calls for a new kind of resistance movement. The resistance movement of 20 years ago, or the assumptions about the system of 20 years ago, have changed. So, what is the outcome? The outcome is that the government was able to manipulate the institutions of the society to generate an outcome in which an accused member of the elite gets off even without a trial. Other citizens with that kind of circumstantial evidence and that statement by the young lady, oh, they would have been in jail right now. But the system is manipulated so that this individual does not have to face the law. There's no equality before the law. And then the government tells us, okay, this man is no longer going to be a minister. And this man is no longer going to be in parliament. There are a couple of things there. On the one hand, the government is tacitly accepting that this man is guilty, but we manipulate the system so that he gets off as far as the law is concerned. And we're going to give, not you, the opposition, the American Secretary of State is coming. We don't want him to come here with a minister being paraded before the courts. The file was sent back in the morning. By the time the afternoon, the file came back. And as soon as the file came back, the president is in Trinidad. He addresses the country from Trinidad and said, this man is going to be relieved of ministerial positions. We called for the man's removal from government. We did. And we get it. He's removed from government. At what cost is he removed from government? It's the cost. And the cost is justice. The cost is justice. That is the cost. Individual justice for the accused and institutional justice for the rest of us. It's a big price to pay. A big price to pay for the man to be relieved. I was very careful when I called for the man to be relieved of government. Because somewhere in the front of my mind, I realized that they were going to play this trick on us. They're going to remove him from office, but the price is going to be no justice. So that's where we are tonight. Another example of how our country and its institutions have become unhinged, and that all of us are in great danger. Because we have a system that can be manipulated to get somebody off. And if a system can be manipulated to get somebody of the elite off, it can be manipulated to jail others. That's what we're seeing. My brother is backstage, and I'm going to bring him in, Brother Nigel London, and we're going to have this discussion. We're going to broaden this discussion because it's a three-card trick they're playing on us. And we got to let you all know that it's a three-card trick and that there are lessons that we have to learn going forward about what we demand. The system has not worked. And the system has not been working since August of 2020. Let me bring in my brother. Good evening, Brother Nigel.
Greetings to you and good evening to all of those who are viewing. It is such, as always, a distinct honor and a pleasure to share these moments with you. Our country really deserves voices now that can engage in conversations of this nature, that can guide the actions and the thoughts of Guyanese who, as they say, have sense.
Brother Nigel, thanks very much. And thanks always for coming on the show. Very early, you spotted something that the rest of us did not spot. And you were off the blocks very quickly. As soon as this thing was made public, you were off the blocks. And as we look back, it is because you recognize something big is happening here. The rest of us joined, we went on to the streets, but it took us a little time, to really figure. But you were out there before the rest of Guyana. Talk to us about What inspired you? What is it you saw that was unique and also not so unique about this issue that you were off the block so quickly?
Thank you, and I really appreciate the question. It should be a foregone conclusion to many that my being a father of a 16-year-old girl with almost a similar stature to that of the complainant triggered my reaction to the situation, because a thought crossed my mind, but what this if this were my daughter? I can say to you now that there would be no need for all of these investigations and so on. But at the end of the day, I had to take a stance because I had no other option to do than to do so. But apart from that foregone conclusion, I remembered immediately Dharmlal in so many other issues and incidents, including one in the hallowed halls of the House of Assembly, and how Irfan Ali and Bharat Jagdeo failed, along with so many women in the upper tier of the PPP civic leadership, failed to honor the integrity and decency of another man's wife, all at the expense of this disrespectful, decadent, degraded man called Dharmlal. And I also, Dr. Hines, took careful note of the fact that for the past 2 or more years, I've been saying to this nation that the Director of Public Prosecutions is a threat to our judicial system, to the integrity of that system. Even the members of the CCJ, the president, upbraided her. She is a threat to the judicial integrity of this country. And when I thought about these things, I said, if I do not take to the streets, as I did with SARS-CoV-2 and all the COVID and all the rest, if I do not take to the public place and make this known to Irfan Ali and to Bharat Jagdeo especially, that I'm onto you all, and I know exactly what you will do, because to add to that, the bitter experience of my losing my livestock to a PPP councillor, not member of parliament here, just a councillor, and I saw and witnessing members of the Guyana Police Force ducking, as they say, hiding, refusing to submit evidence that would incriminate this woman, I realized that if Dharmlal would be a minister, since he's a minister, and obviously maybe Bharat's pet, this would not reach the halls of justice. And it's unfortunate that I was right.
This will not meet the halls of justice. Brother, what? You've laid out the moving parts there. But every country is run by institutions. You mentioned the Director of Public Prosecution. She is part of an institution. Um, every country has a system of governance, a system of laws, and very early you came to the conclusion that this will not go the way it should go. Did you conclude that the system would not work?
I did actually, because the system of respecting the rule of law in Guyana disintegrated almost to a point of being non-existent from 2020 with the recount. I call it nonsense, because it should have never happened. And it's unfortunate I have to tie that into this, but I'm saying what caused me to realize the systems in this country and their deficiencies. I understood clearly that the judicial system, which includes the police force, it must include them because it wants to investigate. They're very critical to this system being able to work. The Director of Prosecutions, who they say they claim to have advice from or seek advice from. These various systems have proven to me repeatedly that they have collapsed in the face of an atrocious group of individuals. Not the entire PPP party. Please, members of PPP, do not misunderstand what I'm saying to you. Not those who may vote for the PPP. There are a few faces in your group who are totally against the rule of law in this country. And so I recognize that this so-called system that we have here in Guyana is not suited towards an underprivileged individual, worst, an indigenous individual. Let's not forget that they have issues with lands being given, and people could just barge into their villages and try to mine coal and these things without even giving them consideration. So our country is faced with, at this moment, a reality that's very painful. That the system, when I saw it, I realized that Dharmlal, Hicken, worst, Priya Manikchand, who had the nerve to say that she was privy to this, and she contacted the CEO instead of the police to make contact with this girl to meet the child, and the child was to decide some future date when they're going to meet. I realized since then, my brother, that this system in Guyana, these systems, are geared towards oppression and the destruction of the underprivileged. And that is what triggered and continues to trigger my outrage. Because I realize that if people do not arise and act now, the Guyana that you think you love will be a Guyana that you may not be able to survive in on this regime.
And I share those sentiments. I share and I try every night here to get our people into that mode of thought. Because we are still into the mode of thought that we are in a democratic system and that the system works.
Oh.
You know, we still hear some of our people talk about, that the coalition won the election in 2020. And I'm wondering, and I'm saying, shut up with that nonsense.
Exactly.
Those elections were not about some party winning or losing.
Oh.
Shut up with that nonsense. I holler at our people. Those elections were about laying the foundation for the hell that we are going through right now.
That's correct.
It was a change of the order. And we have to understand that elections are not always elections. Elections sometimes are the moment for changing something bigger. And so when we are down in the gutter, talking about whether we won or lost the 2020 election, the people are changing the system around us so that when one of them gets caught with his pants down, they manipulate the system to put on 1,000 pounds on him to make him look clothed like a normal person.
Yeah.
They send him to church and get black people sitting down in that church, skinning their teeth, when a monster in their midst is sitting there and taking advantage of their religious sanctity. That is the country we are in. My brother, they've said that this minister is no longer minister. He's no longer a member of parliament. Oh, what a wonderful government we are. We have heard the cries of the people. Is that so?
No, because when I listened to Irfan Ali, and I did so carefully, I paid attention to the fact that the young lady would have mentioned President Ali in this appeal. She mentioned the Private Sector Commission in this appeal. She appealed to the citizens of Guyana in general, which includes all religious organizations and NGOs and so on. She made a general appeal, but most importantly to the president. And I listened carefully to what Ali said from Trinidad and Tobago. After he partied in Canada, by the way. Yeah. After he had a party. The country is in turmoil. Let's not forget the 20 in Madhya, little children who were burned to death. We haven't recovered from that. We now move on to this that involves a minister in his cabinet. And Ali would say that Dharmlal requested, not that he fired Dharmlal from the cabinet. Dharmlal made a request. Listen, I need to just quit, because he said that Dharmlal has told him about how much Dharmlal was affected. Irfan Ali said that he read what all of us would have read in reference to this girl's complaint. Dr. Hines, the president who's paid, the man who's paid to be president, and I say that all the time, he's paid to be president, sat before us all and said nothing about this girl. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. All that he said was that Damlal is hurt, according to Damlal's report. And Damlal says he's going to resign. Most damning is the fact that Ali said that Damlal committed to supporting the PPP. And I can tell Ali why. Because the PPP supported Damlal. This is basic common sense. You would have been better off if Ali saying Damlal said he doesn't want anything to do with the party anymore, he's going to form his own party. You stood a chance. Because he's announced to you, based on what you said, that he's committed to this party because he knows that the system that was employed here by the PPP has him where he is at this moment. And I'm cautious to say to Guyanese, at this moment, not forever. This is just a moment for him. At this moment, he thinks that he may be free. Just at this moment, he thinks his life may be at ease. Just at this moment, he has the gall to say that he would support the PPP because the PPP has demonstrated to him that they're loyal to Damlal and not to a poor indigenous girl, as she described herself. They're loyal to him and not to the general populace, including their supporters, who have said that this is totally wrong.
Brother London, I know where you stand on race and class. And I assume you know where I stand on race and class.
Correct.
And for me, it's not race or class. It's race and class.
And that's good.
And class. And more gender in terms of the way in which power functions in our society. And I know there were Amerindians who would look upon people like you and me and call us racist. Why are they bringing up race? Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I hope that they don't make that mistake, because I said at the Square of the Revolution, I said it here the first day I stood, that my great-grandmother is 100% Akwayo. If I look to the side, my facial features tell the tale. My nasal structure to some extent. How can I be a racist? It is insane, because the truth is that the indigenous girl said that she is not the only one.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone who points to racist behaviors would be those who are taking advantage of raping, sodomizing, and terrorizing our girls. They're the ones who should be racist. I cannot comprehend an Amerindian saying that I'm racist if, for one, I have the blood of Akwayo in me. Secondly, I am standing more than many of your leaders are. The Tushals, I don't even know if they exist in many instances. Schumann is yet to come publicly and stand, not right, and say that he wants justice. Where are your Tushals? Where's the Council of Tushals?
And that's where I was going,
exactly.
Brother London. I was saying, because of our advocacy against discrimination of African Guyanese, there are many in the society, including African Guyanese, who feel that we are injecting race into Guyanese politics and society. And I'm saying that that young lady was allegedly raped, not just as a normal young lady. She was raped largely because she's Amerindian. And that I hope that one of the lessons that is learned there by the Amerindian community is that you too suffer from racial discrimination and racial oppression as much as Africans and as much as poor Indians. And that the issue of the racial discourse is not confined to Africans. It's to all races. And Amerindians now are seeing that we have a government, we have a political elite that is not interested in your welfare as Amerindians. They're interested in manipulating you as Amerindians to get your electoral support and to use all those Amerindians. 60% of them, I understand, who voted at the last election for the PPP. In hindsight, have to now say that I am partly responsible for the rape of that child because I empowered that political elite and they took that power that we gave to them to advantage our young women. Over to you, my brother.
Thank you, my brother. And I would like to caution Guyanese of all ethnic groups. You are immature and unprepared to function in unity as many people talk about. If you are unprepared to A, respect your ethnic origins. This is important. Being united doesn't mean I have to despise who I am and where I came from. You must respect the fact that even in schools we taught that we are six ethnic groups in this country. That's important. Because the little girl, I was pleased when she said it. She didn't describe herself as a little Guyanese girl at the end of the matter. She said, I am a poor indigenous girl. That's important.
Yeah.
I credit her with that. I applaud her for saying that she understands her history, she values her identity, and she also understands how Dharmlal and that elitist group treat people of our kind. This is important. And so we cannot, as a people, advance unity in this country if we are unprepared, I say again, to value the fact that I have a right to love my Africanness in reference to the most dominant feature I have. But I'm also within my blood possessing the Aquayo, the Amerindio, the natives. My other grandmother was an East Indian woman, my great-grandmother. So though I appear to be an African descendant, I'm treated that way by many who are racist. I understand, though, that I cannot do such injustice to five other ethnic groupings if I say to them that we must just abandon this whole talk about race and so on, and just hug each other and say, well, okay, then forget who we are. We can't do that. Because the history of the Africans is so rich in this country that the ancestors of mine and yours and others who bled and who died and who dug the canals that people could now throw bottles in, no, they're not, their life would not be wasted by my kowtowing or bowing to immature minds who say that if we speak to who we are, then we are against others. It's not happening.
Yes. And you said it well there. You know, people have a right to support whatever party they want to support. Vote for whichever party they want to vote for. That's not my business. You know, you think. But I'm saying one cannot look at the trajectory of our politics and society in the last 3 years and then go to the PPP and say to them, I think you are doing better. And I, as an African, come over to you. No. And all those Africans, from whoever Chase or whoever Green, the name, all those who cross over are responsible for the raping of this child. Go ahead, my brother.
And I hold them responsible because of their silence. And it's important. If they had said something,
yes,
if they had come, and I'm still inviting them. Tomorrow I'll be standing publicly yet again. I am purchasing fuel to head to the city, to head in protest yet again. Why am I doing so? Because if I'm inviting elements from the PP camp, say, listen, come and stand with us to say that you are totally against that which you can see is injustice. If you fail to do that, then my only conclusion is that you are in support of what is unjust. Okay, fine. Do not stand with me then. Find your own little corner. And you stand there. At the end of the day, just stand to say as a Guyanese, especially females, that you are against this. I am horrified, Dr. Hines and viewers, to see Guyanese women saying from the PPP that Dharmlal is a good man and that Dharmlal has served well. How could he serve well? Forget this girl's mother just for a moment, and I don't mean it in that context, but just put that aside. How could he serve well if he stands in the House of Assembly and tells a man's wife that she needs a dildo? How is that called proper service? How could he serve well if he refused to even apologize for that statement? or to retract it? How could he have served well if, in the light of this circumstance, he is yet to come to the nation who pays him to say, I am innocent, and because of my innocence, I would like for this matter to go to the court to prove, or for me to be vindicated? He did no such thing. How is that good service from a public servant of his caliber? But I see women say, women, I'm not speaking to men here, women are saying that Dharmlal would have served well. That tells me that the PPP, in reference to who they want to put to run local government in these places, you are all guilty. You are equally guilty in my eyes.
They're all equally guilty. And what a shame. What a shame that Indian women and Black women can stand by and look at a child, an indigenous child, being allegedly raped by a man of power, and you put your self-interest, your political interest over the safety of a child. Where is the political morality in
Correct.
our country? Where is the political morality in our country, in our society? Have we fought slavery and overcome it? Have we fought indentureship and overcome it? Have we fought colonialism and overcome it so that we can permit men of power from marauding our country with the sure knowledge that the systems in our country will facilitate the injustice against people who they're charged to protect? We have reached the point in this country, I think, where the entire table has to go. We like to talk about constitutional reform. And this reform means tamper, straighten the little edges, leave the essence of the thing, just play around with it. No, we have come to the point where our society needs to be transformed, because none of our children is safe anymore. Not just that they can be attacked and mauled and raped, but that we have a system that is going to cover it up in the first place. And if the cover up doesn't work, a system that's going to protect the accused marauders. That for me is the big issue here. It's not just that the act was committed, but that there is no protection for ordinary people. Ordinary people, no protection from them in this system. And this system is rotten to the core, and it has to be overthrown. The system has to be overthrown. I'm not talking about overthrowing government.
Right.
I'm talking about overthrowing the system. Nigel London, your take.
I cannot agree with you more, because I believe that the 1980 Constitution, as referred to, and the PP call it the Barnum Constitution, they still use. It was not targeted towards what we have now in Guyana. We are different people. The Guyanese, and I want to coin the word, the Guyanese-ness, if it's such a term, is lost in many instances. Our society is governed by greed and fear. And the people who now have positions of authority no longer hold in high esteem being called Guyanese, as it would have been way back then. I have noticed, and I don't hesitate to note, the response by many persons from the opposition. I dare say, and some they don't take this personally. Most of y'all don't have anything to do with it personally anyway. But I believe in good governance. How do we have 2 members of parliament in Region 10 and 0 would have shown up even for 1 minute, to stand to say that based on the Rockstone community and Kumaka community in Old England and these places where we have natives living, we're going to stand to say that this young lady and this system has to be, as you said, as far as I'm concerned, toss it in the garbage. Let us refashion, or more than anything else, build an entirely new constitution that caters to what we have now. What I saw in reference to August 20th, August 2nd, as a matter of fact, March to August, the election fiasco, we have to have a constitution that prevents any individual from making, or I should say, allowing the likes of Sarah Ann Lynch, Chatterjee, and these people from walking into any place where elections are being held and seeking to demand audience and order processes. We have to have an adjustment made where no leader of this nation on either side or any side can say, I want to recount. And somebody says, yes, I agree. And you wear a robe. No. We have to have an adjustment made where anyone who sits in the House of Assembly, I mean that, must be there elected by the people. Indeed, not selected by a leader, elected by the people. And if you are in any way, like Dharamlal, accused of such atrocities, the people should have a forum to have you removed and to be dealt with. Our society cannot survive with this constitution in the hands of those who have no respect for it. And that's what we're dealing with. They don't respect it. And sadly, on either side, sometimes they don't respect it.
In the hands of those who don't have respect for the people of this country. Sisters and brothers, we are sounding the warning over and over again. Don't let these people get you all tied down in these things about who win an election and who lost an election and all of those things. There are bigger things at stake. The society that we dream of, the society that our foreparents gave their blood for, the society that we think that is that is on the horizon because of our newfound oil wealth. That society is being snatched away from us in front of our very faces. And we are really being called upon. We've been called upon to rescue ourselves from this grand plot because of the oil wealth to turn our country into a plantation again. This is plantation behavior. The slave master could have raped the females, and he didn't face any court. We now have a court, and yet an accused slave master is not facing the court. Back then they didn't have a court. He didn't have to go to court. Now we have a court. But just as the slave master back then didn't face a court for rape, the slave master today does not have to go before the court. I wasn't there. I am in sympathy with human beings for their personal failures. But I'm saying your personal failure has to take second place to the fact that you're a man of power.
Correct.
And this is a child who's helpless. And this society has to send an example to the rest of us men. What example are you sending to the little boy? I can rape and get away with it. I can, as the young people are telling me now, they can Dharamlal and get away with it.
My Lord.
That is the example we are sending to young men in this country. We are in a bad shape, and we have to redouble and up the ante of our struggle to build a movement, because there's strength in movement.
Yes.
To build a movement in this country. My brother, you say you're coming to down tomorrow. Talk to us about what you're doing.
I am. I plan to be in Georgetown tomorrow. I know that Blinken will be here. I know that the police force will be out in the grand style and numbers, but it doesn't eliminate my intention to stand and to make it known to all and to Blinken, because I know that satellites see a lot more than people do. So you will know, you certainly be assured of the fact that, as you spoke to this fact, Dr. Hines, and I please viewers, I beg of you, do not misunderstand what I'm saying to you all. If this were a grown woman, it was a little different. I'm not saying it's not bad, but she would have had the physical capabilities to some extent to deal with this man. This is a little child who said, and who in writing said, I'm on my knees begging, please find a group of lawyers to represent me, for I intend, said she, to file charges against Damla. When a little child could plead with us, she said, Pre-Mani Chan, I blame you, because you brought him, you'd walk him around, and you know in her mind that he could destroy. She feels, she prays, it may not be so, but she's saying, being in his company alone, prayer, makes you culpable. If a child could process like that, if a child can reason like that, why can adults not make her confident, especially men, leader of the opposition and other members of society, NGOs, private sector, Joshua Chamber of Commerce, and all y'all, come out to let this child see that we can again engender and strengthen your trust and confidence in men. We have failed, many of you, this child. And our society is in peril when a child cries for help and adults say, I don't want to be victimized. So what is she? What is she? When somebody says, I'm tired, I cannot take this anymore. When a child says that, any average psychologist would know that that is an announcement of a mental ailment that can find its way into very destructive behaviors, or manifested by destructive behaviors. This girl is begging us, would have begged us. So when I see that they're saying that she said she doesn't want to continue the complaint, I want to inject that before I leave you. Listen to me, people. The fact that the DPP and Finale and others are admitting that even Blanham and others, that the child is saying she wants to withdraw the complaint, puts Damla in trouble. Because the law says that if there's a complaint of rape, then there has to be a charge. So she can only withdraw what was present.
Yes.
How could the DPP now say that, given the fact that the child has withdrawn the complaint, there's no cause for further legal action? There is cause for there to have been legal action. So Aliak is now derelict in her performance. She has failed to act in accordance with the law, because the Sexual Offences Act is clear. If there is a complaint made, then there has to be action taken, and no action was taken. So the girl is now removing what they said didn't exist apparently. So let us, as people, understand why I'm going to Georgetown, why others are going to stand wherever we are. We have to take a definite stance. We must. So from about 10:30 in the morning, we are standing. If you are in Sue's Dyke area, come out and stand at the junction. Let there be a presence along the East Bank. Because Darmlal must not say he resigned and it's over. There are other names involved, and Darmlal should be before the court. The DPP should be fired and tried. She has to tell us why. Those investigating for the Ghana Police Force, you should be tried as well in the court of law, because you failed to represent a victim who brought a complaint. Vindhya Prasad, those in Child Care Protection Agency, you have to come forward and speak. So this is not just about Damlal here. We're speaking to a whole system, Dr. Hines, and that will lead me to Georgetown tomorrow, standing at the Square of Revolution in protest.
Square the Revolution tomorrow at around 10:30. If
Yes.
you are in and around Georgetown, please join the protest there at the Square of the Revolution, 10:30 tomorrow. The struggle goes on. We have to learn to recognize that these moments cannot be allowed to die. We must weave these moments into something larger, a movement. A movement. We now know that we have a government that is prepared to manipulate the law to protect its own. We know that. We now know that the life, the humanity of children do not matter to this government when compared with their own power. We now know that this government will go to any length to maintain itself in power. This is a dictatorship like
Correct.
none other that we have seen before. None other that we have seen before in this country and in our region. It's a call to action. It's a call to action. Call to action. You all stop. Stop finding excuses. Stop finding excuses not to register. Because if this thing is only 3 years and it has gotten to this point, my God, if it gets to 10 years, what's going to happen? The police can charge Mr. Morgan for some statement, the man right here on this program, and they can find the charge of cyber crime and pull him before the court. And you have a damning statement but by a little girl and other girls.
Yes.
And you are saying that you cannot at least charge this man? What kind of country are we living in? Your closing thoughts, my brother.
And I appreciate it. I cannot put it better than you would have done. I again implore Guyanese, especially men, especially leadership, those who are elected and selected, please take a stance for the integrity of our nation. This is about the integrity of your nation. There's a generation who's watching, and social media, technology will hold us all accountable because they'll have records of who did what, especially in the public sphere. Let us act. Dr. Hines, again, I'm thankful for your presence. I'm thankful that you've caused me to be here. And to those of you who would have viewed this broadcast, I appreciate it. If you are in Georgetown, if you are in Sue's Dyke on the East Bank, come out of your yard and stand while Blinken is passing. I can tell you that the satellites will be beamed into you. Let them see that as Guyanese, we are displeased with what's happening in our country. And we demand justice for this girl and for the Mahdia 20 among others. We're not going to forget Mahdia. We will not forget. We shall not forget Mocha Arcadia. We shall not forget Amelia's ward. We are standing because things aren't regular, as they say in Guyana. Thank you so much, my brother, and to your viewers.
And thank you so much. And I want to say as we close out tonight, the American government put sanctions on members of the APNU AFC coalition because they felt that they were attempting to rig an election. The PPP government, in this latest instance, has rigged the legal system. There's no attempt here, it's manifest. They've rigged the legal system. They've thrown a child under the bus. Where are the sanctions, Mr. Blinken? Where are the sanctions against this government for the rape of the justice system, for the rigging of the justice system, for the gross inhumanity against its own citizens, in this case, the little ones? Suffer the little children to come unto me. Suffer the little children to come unto me. We have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. And I'm pleading with you, my people. I'm pleading with you This issue is not about party. This issue is not about whether the PNC is better than the PPP. This issue is not about whether you have the right leader and the wrong leader. Those things are important at a low level. I understand that. I understand. But that's not where our struggle is. We passed that stage. We are dealing with a system. In a generation ago, when I was a young boy, I answered the call of that time to lay down my life and my liberty to stop what we had a consensus then was a government that was out of control. And those who remind me about what Burnham did and what Burnham didn't, I did not fight against Burnham so that the PPP can do the nonsense that they're doing today. Everything that we accuse Burnham of, this government has taken to the peak, hundreds of times worse. It's not, you don't compare dictatorships. A dictatorship is a dictatorship. But one is moved to make comparisons here, to make it clear, especially to those who support the PPP. You are supporting a monster. You are supporting a monster. Martin Carter says, this I've learned today, a speck, tomorrow a hero. Hero or monster, you are consumed. You are consumed. All of us are being consumed by this nastiness that passes for a government. Get off our butts, as the Americans would say, get off our rear and join this movement. Only we, the people, can bring an end to this. It's brazenness. It's brazenness. We do not swallow the nonsense about relieving this man of ministerial position. You're right. He should be relieved. But the struggle is not just about relieving him from office. The struggle is a struggle for a just society. A just society in which I and you and you and all of us can be treated with dignity and equality before the law and before the government. Tonight, we are all exposed. They can manipulate the law and the legal system to bury us alive. They can manipulate the law and the legal system to find them innocent when the world is convinced of their guilt. Now is not the time to stand on the sidelines. Now is not a time to just fight for your party or your race or your gender or your class alone. Now is the time to fight for all of us. All of us. This is the dark time. Very dark time. All around the land, brown beetles crawl about. Brown beetles crawl about. The shining sun is hidden in the sky. Red flowers bend their heads in awful sorrow. It's the carnival of misery. Carnival of misery. We've been here before. We've been here before. We'd rather not be here today. We should not be here today. This is serious. This is not about going into Lang Avenue and telling us about building bridges, and bridges must be built. Man shall not live by bread alone. Man shall not live by bread alone. The Secretary of State is coming here tomorrow. Let him know. Not because we are looking to him to deliver us, but because someone acted in the name of his government and country, conspired in 2020 to open the floodgates to what we are experiencing today. America, we just passed July 4th. On July 4th in 1776, America declared its independence from Britain and waged a war for its independence with the mantra of no governance without representation. Please do not deny our country that right to chart our own destiny, America. We know that you look after your self-interest. We know that we are not as powerful as you, but we have self-interest too, because we are humans. We do not look to you to liberate us. All we say is that take some responsibility for the errors of 2020. You have installed a beastly government. We don't look to you to do our work for us. But people like us have built America and have called America to book. In some instances, America's responded. America, in 2020, you helped to install a deathly government. We come again tomorrow to continue this journey. It's movement time. There is strength in movement. This latest calamity must urge us to move from first gear to second gear. We are already late. We're already late. But it's never too late.